All right, hey guys. So we're going to be wrapping up our angle lesson today, which is Monday, the day after Mother's Day. So we've talked about acute, obtuse, right, and straight angles. Those are all kind of those single angles. We're going to wrap up our talk about angle pairs, angle relationships, right? So complementary means that we're looking at a right angle that's 90 degrees that's broken up into two smaller angles. It's bisected, right? So if I bisect this right angle and make it into two smaller angles, I could put numbers like 50 and 40 there, right? Or 60 and 30. But we kind of work up to a point where we're incorporating some algebra. So for right now, we're going to start with 2x plus 20. And then my other angle is going to be x plus 10. So we know that because of that right angle symbol, we know this whole thing adds up to 90 degrees. So we know the first angle plus the second angle have to give us 90. So if these were just whole numbers, it'd be really easy, right, to figure them out. But they're expressions, so we want to combine them using everything we've learned this year through our algebra unit, right? So if I'm looking, I've got an x and I've got another x term, right? So I want to combine those x terms. So in front of that x is a 1. So 2x plus 1x gives us how much? That would be 3x, right? So I've got 3x. And then now I'm going to look at my integers. I've got a positive 10 and a positive 20. What's that going to give us? Positive 30, right? And then that we know that because they're complementary and we saw that right angle symbol, we know they're equal to 90 degrees. So now we've got this nice two-step equation. So this is a great review of what we've done earlier this year. We've got our railroad tracks from elementary school you might have remembered. What's the opposite of adding 30? So if I want to isolate this 3x, I need to get rid of this 30, right? So the opposite of adding is subtracting. So if I subtract 30 from both sides, 30 minus 30, right, or positive 30 and negative 30 create that zero pair. And I've got 3x left. 90 minus 30 gives us 60. What's my last step? If I want to get x to have a coefficient of 1, what's the opposite of multiplying by 3? So in this case, we want to divide by 3. So x equals 20. All right, now there wasn't any problem on top, but let's say they asked you to find the angle measures. So you would take what you think x is and you would substitute that into each of your expressions, right? So here it's whatever x is plus 10. So we know x is 20. So 20 plus 10 is 30 degrees, right? And then let's look at our other expression. You could probably guess by now what it's supposed to be if you know it's complementary, but anywhere you see an x put a 20 in, 2 times 20, which is 40, plus your 20, 40 plus 20 equals 60 degrees. And 60 plus 30 give us our 90, right? So that's the highest level of where I expect you to be for complementary, all right? So you're going to see today there'll be a Google Forms assignment that'll be, basic complementary. Can you identify if it adds to 90? And then incorporating some algebra that goes with it. The last example you're going to watch today is on supplementary. So some of you might be kind of abbreviating it to just SUPP in your head. That's fine. Supplementary means an angle plus another angle to add up to 180 degrees. So it's basically like saying we're going to take this straight line, and we know a straight line is 180 degrees. It's saying we're going to take that straight line, we're going to break it into two smaller angles. So if I bisect this, which means I'm going to break it into two smaller angles, right? And I say one is represented by 8x, and then I say this other angle over here is represented by 16x plus 60. All right? So I've got to think about how can I find those two angles? Well, if they were just whole numbers, right, you would know if this was 80, this would have to be 100. Those two added together give you 180. But in this case, we've got expressions, right? So I've got my 16x plus 60 and my 8x. So again, this is a great chance to review that algebra that we learned earlier in the year. We want to combine our like terms. So I've got an x term here, and then I've got an x term here. They both have coefficients. So one's a 16, one's an 8. They're both positive. That's going to give us, what do you guys think? 16 and 8. I won't add it out. I think you can do it in your head. 16 and 8 gives us our 24x, right? Plus, is there anything to put with the 60 on the left-hand side? 60 is the only constant, right? Okay, equals 180. All right, so next step. If we want to solve for our x, right, we want to isolate the variable, what's the opposite of adding 60? Well, we want to subtract 60. We're going to subtract 60 from both sides. Cross out that 0 pair, right? So we're going to end up with 24x equals 180 minus 60 is 120. If I want to get that x coefficient to be a 1, what's the opposite of multiplying by 24? Well, we want to divide by 24. Now, you might not know your 24 facts by heart. That's okay. This cancels to give us 1x, or you could just say x. And if you're really not sure, kind of estimate. 24 is close to 20, right? So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So close to 5. So try on the side. 24 times 5. See if you get it. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 2 is 20. So x equals 5. So again, just like our last example, we found what x was, but sometimes they're going to ask you to come back and solve for the angle measure. So 8 times whatever x is. So 8 times 5. So that gives us 40 degrees for this angle measure, right? And then over here, 16 times 5 plus 60. Well, if you're not sure what 16 times 5 is, try it down on your paper. 6 times 5 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus 3 is 8. So 80 plus 60. 8 plus 6 we know is 14, and add a 0, so 140. Now I can check to make sure that I did it correctly by making sure that these two angles, 140 plus 40, when you add them together, have to give me 180, and they do. So I know that I've done it all correct. So as you're working through Monday, keep in mind the idea of complementary and supplementary and working through the algebra. You're going to have some questions where I'm going to ask you to look and make sure that it's added up to the right amount, making sure you can combine your like terms, and making sure you can sub back in. So I hope you have a great day. This week's supposed to be a little nicer in weather, and I hope you were all nice to your moms on Mother's Day. Bye, guys.